they wanted him to do a blood sacrifice of those two children, and then also give up my mother to an elder of the Masonry as a wife. Okay. And because of that, he committed suicide.
My name is Aaron Indigo. It is an absolute honor to introduce this conversation to you. It is the 30th of July 2023, and for the first time ever on camera, Dr. Alex Ling is going to be speaking about his experience of having a high-ranking Masonic father. Also, Billy Gillies is going to be speaking about his experience of having Masonic family members and a lifetime of the effects of that. Mandy and Angie from the Magna Carta Sisters have a heart-to-heart dialogue with these kings, with these warriors, and I do warn you, there is a trigger warning. There's no holding back. Enough is enough. People just walk past these Masonic buildings on the high street and don't even ask or question what's going on. These secret meetings, these secret handshakes, the effects of the women and the family members because of the different levels that they have to achieve. It's time that we start to expose and speak boldly about these things. And I thank these kings and I thank my sisters for having this conversation.
We're here today with Billy Gillies from America and Dr. Alex Ling. They're here to tell their incredible stories of their experiences of Freemasonry in their families. So if we can start with you, Billy, and start with your story and, take it from here.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Billy Gillies. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. My maternal grandfather, John Roland Wright, was a 33rd degree Master Mason entering into the Scottish Rites. He started in the Masonry when he was 20 years old, and it took him 25 years in order to attain that rank of 33rd degree Master Mason here in the St. Louis area. I didn't know the full extent of the story because my grandmother and my mother would not talk about my grandfather at all. All right. Throughout my youth. And I didn't know the full extent of the story until after my grandmother passed away. Because my grandfather was a 33rd degree Master Mason, after my grandmother had a stroke, they allowed her to stay at the Masonic home here in St. Louis until her death in 1986 for free. Okay. So we didn't want to, the family decided not to interrupt anything like that. But throughout my entire youth, I remember that my father was being courted hard by the Masons in order to join. And my mother had to sit down with my father and talk with him about it. And I overheard the conversation. And it's like they weren't after my father. They were after me. Okay. And that's what my mother told my father. They said because of the bloodline, they were wanting to court your son, Bill, not you. Okay. They wanted to get their hooks into your son. And I overheard that and I asked questions about it, but my mother wouldn't tell me. And that was because they didn't want, anything to happen to my grandmother. All right. So after that, she told me exactly what had happened and showed me the artifacts of the Masonry that she kept, including the apron, all the memorabilia, the regale and whatnot. But upon my grandfather's death, he committed suicide in March of 1958. Okay, 5 years before I was born. And there was a letter that he wrote that my grandmother destroyed because she didn't want the secret to get out. All right. And from my mother's account of everything, it was because he committed suicide because he couldn't handle the fact of being a 33rd degree Master Mason and going into the Scottish Rites and finding out that it required child sacrifice in order to go through the Scottish Rites. Well, there were three children that, my mother and two siblings. Older sister Shirley, about 2 years older, had rheumatic fever 3 times as a child and left her with a mind of a 6-year-old throughout her entire adult life. The younger brother, Johnny, should have been a C-section, but they decided to do natural childbirth versus that. And he was a breech and got the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck coming out of the birth canal, and they couldn't get him out in time and didn't get enough oxygen to his brain whenever he was born, and was never right from the get-go. Oh. The way the story is told, they thought that my Aunt Shirley and Uncle Johnny were abominations, and they wanted him to do a blood sacrifice of those two children, and then also give up my mother to an elder of the Masonry as a wife. Okay. And because of that, he committed suicide, because the letter that was written that I never saw, but was told to my mother by my mother actually saw it. Okay. They said, if any of these secrets ever get out, if anything ever, comes out about the Masonry and whatnot, we will come and we will kill your entire family, including my mother, my grandmother, and anyone associated with it.
I think it's really brave of you to come out today yourself. Obviously, we haven't heard Alex's story. I mean, that this is huge, to be honest. And I feel that it's time that it needs to be out there now.
The thing is, it's come out now this last 3 years anyway. But to hear people's stories now is another level.
I think it's imperative, to be honest.
It is, and it will be a kind of a healing for those involved, like yourself, who have got these horrendous stories to tell. So,
well, through the years, there have been friends of the family that were Masons that still tried to court my father and I hard. Okay. And one was a very, very good family friend that we had to absolutely divorce ourselves from, because they would not stop. They were coming at me privately, around my mother and father, and asking me to join. And I really wanted to. Okay. But, and this was at the age of 20, 21,
So
22.
So it's like a grooming process then, it sounds to
Yes,
me.
it is. It
Grooming.
is.
Yeah.
Right. And that was when 1983 through 86, I was being courted hard, very, very hard. And I really wanted to join, but my mother said, no, please don't, please do not get involved with them. And I kept asking why, and she wouldn't tell me. And it was because if they found out about it, they would have killed my grandmother and my mother and my father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So until then, I really, even after that, they said, please don't go out and, tell anybody about this. Don't, whatnot. Well, now my mother and father had passed. Okay. And I'm like, they're gone. All right. And I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm not going to shy away from it. The truth needs to come out.
Good. Yeah.
So
we're in the great
and here I am.
Yeah.
It's like the only two people are left that are me and my sister. And my sister doesn't even know the truth. Okay. She didn't want to hear about it. She didn't want to know about it. So there it is.
So that's where you are today. Now, what we'll do, Billy, we'll move across to Alex. Alex tell his story, and then maybe we could just have a little bit of interaction with
Sure.
the both. That's incredible, Billy.
Yeah.
And obviously very sad, a sad truth out there, but it needs to be out there. So, just stand by. But Alex, Dr. Alex Ling
Can you relate to anything that
and
Yes.
Billy's
talking about? Yeah.
I'm very familiar with this kind of involvement, or with this kind of connections which they're trying to keep alive from through the bloodlines, basically. So there's a lot more background information why they're doing this and why it's so important for them to continue this. Now, my father, just to just explain quickly, he was not just a Freemason, he was also the Grand Master of a Saturn lodge, which is called Fraternitas Saturni, amongst other lodges, which had its origin way back and were quite popular in Germany at some time in the 50s and 60s, pre-war time as well. So some of those lodges were not knowingly, they were more like secret lodges, some of them. And some of them were known from the Second World War. So, for example, Adolf Hitler wanted to be a part of it. There's a Fock Lodge, which I shouldn't really mention, but I do, which consisted of 99 members, and it was a very, very dark lodge. So compared to the Freemason Lodge, probably one of the most notorious lodges which ever existed. So he was a member amongst some other people who I've met in my lifetime who were associated with my father. Now, my father is quite a well-known character. His work is quite well-known, especially when it comes to sexual magic. So he's written numerous books. So I have been quite for a number of years, I have been researching his work, because I didn't actually know what my father was doing. So I had no idea. I was brought up by a different person, like a nanny. So she was basically my safeguard. But my parents would travel the world to buy or purchase or auction numerous what they called artifacts, which would be handed over to the lodges. But that wasn't their only reason to travel. So they would connect to all sorts of different lodges around the world. It took me quite a while, until I was probably about 17, 18, to realize that he was involved in those lodges, just purely because my mother by accident slipped her lips, so that she talked about the 99 lodge, which is a Fock lodge. So then I started to research and came across his name. I came across his friends, and then they approached me wanted me to be a part of it, and they didn't let go. So I had to literally travel and move countries. So then I ended up in England, and then I decided not to be scared of them anymore. So I turned the cards, and I started really to go after them in a way which allowed me to, which was stupid in many ways, because I got in so much trouble in the beginning. But I turned the cards in that respect, that I would pretend to be very interested in their work. And because of the bloodline I was carrying, they opened the door to me. So then I gained enormous knowledge, which led me to Scotland. So where I was invited, I'm in two minds to talk about the names, because it's quite.
You don't have to mention any names. This is just clearly your story, obviously, and obviously there's a lot of familiar things going on with you and yours and Billy's story, especially about the grooming part.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So went up into the highest ranks you can imagine. So I was invited into a home in Scotland, which was the high seat in Scotland for the Freemasons. So then I was offered to be a part of it. And I decided in the end, after I harvested a lot of information about members and such, to turn my back. And soon as I did that, they were after me big time. So I had again to leave the country for a little while because literally the media was destroying my life up there. So when I then ended up in Germany, I learned that even the closest family members were part of it. I couldn't trust anybody. So then I ended up in Spain, and from Spain I ended up in Turkey. So it was quite an eye-opener how they operated. And it was very, very difficult to find people I could trust because they were just, this network is just incredible. So their information network is something you think in the end you're paranoid because every single person you meet has some form of a link. So that was what happened to me. So I couldn't just trust any. I cut a long story short, I ended up back in Britain, and I kept my head very low. So what I did is I did a lot of research in how they actually worked, not just from a lodge point of view, but also to see what kind of frequencies they're using, where their knowledge was originating from, what kind of downfalls they had in history. So all these kind of elements I gathered to then basically build a safety net, not just for myself, but also for other people, and to say, look, hey, we don't have to be actually scared, you know, so there are ways how we can fight back and stand up and be strong against those kind of people, right? So
Yeah.
that's the kind of point where I came to, where I'm now kind of completely not ignoring their kind of network. I know they're there and I know what they're doing. But in essence, really what I'm saying is they have lost already, and they know that. So because they are linked, even so they're very strong groups of these networks. The one thing which they're lacking, and that's what I found out in all my travels, in all my research, is they have no empathy. Of course, we know that.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have that human link, that kind of what makes us human. So to be connected to each other with this, which is love, and which is the unity which we have. And they really don't have that as such. They're like literally like reptiles who would just kill each other, you know, for the sake of power. And that's what I, for those kind of years, that I felt almost pity, you know, so I felt almost like you quite sad individuals, because you don't have really that kind of stronghold. All you have is the knowledge which was held from humans to enable us to reclaim our power, you know. So, and that's a big part of that. So all their secrecy is based basically on keeping humans in the dark. So, and there's no reason for that, because, and that's where I come later to describe what kind of frequencies we're talking about. So,
So Alex, how many years of research? Obviously, you found that your dad was this Grand Master in the magic sense as well. So how did you find out that he was writing books? What led you to that point?
I didn't know that for many years. So in the end, I came across his friends, some of them which have passed away now, and there are two different types of magicians, if you like. So we're not just talking about Freemasons. There are two types of Freemasons anyway. One is like the charity type, which is like the front, and then you have the ones which are really connected deeply into all the magic kind of stuff. So so then you sorry, I lost the kind of thread here now.
Mandy was asking, you know, how you found out about his book.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, so when I was talking to a friend of my dad's, and I can name him, his name was Professor Dr. Hamburger. So he's passed away many years ago. He then told me a lot of stories about my dad, which I had no idea from. So he need to explain who your dad is, what kind of rituals they performed to actually create you. So that is another thing, that most of the children who came from these kind of backgrounds have been created in a ritualistic way. So that is a big part of it. In that respect, when I was being created that way, my mom actually stopped the ritual because she was not only scared, but she decided that it wasn't the right thing to do. So she interrupted the ritual. So which was a big deal at the time when it happened. But for some reason, it kind of changed the whole outcome and the frequencies which they were kind of trying to keep up. So after that, when I was born, there were many people who got involved in the process because I was not born in a hospital. I was born outside a hospital, and I was shipped or driven to a very remote hospital in a very small village in Germany. So when I started to research it, by that time the hospital was already burned down to the ground. So it's the fire started in the archive. They would take all the children out the day before the fire started. So obviously someone wanted to get rid of all the paperwork in that hospital. And that's not just because of me, that's because many of those children.
Yeah.
So the doctor of the hospital was also a 33-degree Freemason. So that there was all this kind of links which I found out about it, and it was quite incredible. So everything which I researched in the end was leading into this enormous network. So anyway, so when I heard about when I spoke to Professor Hamburger, and I on numerous occasions was visiting him, and he was a professor actually at the university as well. So he was teaching. It was very strange. I went into the university and to visit him, and I was really surprised that he was talking about Aleister Crowley in one of his talks to students. So that was, which I thought was, wow, that's quite an unusual lecture. However, he put me right on the spot, and he said, now I would like you to talk to my students because you surely know a lot more about magic than I do. And I was really put on the spot. So, and I did research a lot of the kind of the background about magic to know exactly what it is, what they're actually using in that respect. So, but I wasn't really that deeply involved. So I stumbled a few things, and I was kind of more or less trying to explain a few things. And then he said, it's okay, so we will have a talk later. So he always put me like in a position where I felt really awkward. But then later on, we got quite, I knew on numerous occasions was kind of visiting him. And I was always questioning, why is he so keen to kind of me to join? So there was another guy from the OTO, which is Ordo Templi Orientis. So he also tried to get me on board in his lodge. So again, from both ends, then I learned that my father was a very well-known magician in Germany who was for years and years working on quite a fundamental literature to do with sexual magic and fraternitas, so to all the Saturn magic and these kind of things. So sorry, I'm stumbling a bit because it's the first time
Right.
about it, so I'm a little bit nervous. Um,
You're doing well, Alex. It's quite incredible, and I know it's the first time that you're coming out with this, and wow, it's just incredible. You are incredible to be able to talk about these things. So God bless you.
And Billy.
Now,
Yeah.
one
And
of the one of the things that I want to back up what Alex was saying about hospitals. Okay. One of the things that whenever you get into the Scottish rites, after becoming a 33rd degree, there are several steps that go through the Scottish rites, which includes the child sacrifice. All right. That's when you become a Shriner. Okay. And I don't think most people know this. The lodges, people that are Shriners in the Masonic Brotherhood, they become Shriners and they wear these fezzes that are red with the Muslim crest emboldened on it. Okay. And where it gets its red color from is actually being dipped into the blood of children. This is how they hook you, is the charity work that the Masonry does. And especially here in the United States, and especially here in the St. Louis area, there is Shriners Children's Hospital, where they do a lot of work with young children with disabilities. Okay. And they promote this on a continual basis. They have advertising running on television for Shriners Children's Hospital, where they will treat children with deformities, with mental disabilities, and things of that nature. All right. And that's what my grandfather was really into, was charity with children, because of his two children who had disabilities. That's what he was trying to do. And he was trying to become a Shriner, but he didn't know that getting that fez, okay, and everything else, it was going to be dipped in his own children's blood. Okay, in order to get the color of it. I mean, this is really disgusting. I see these television commercials come on all the time about Shriners Hospital for Children, and it's part of the Masonic Lodge, and I get disgusted. I almost want to, I want to go down there and I want to tell them exactly what they're doing. Okay. And because in the 1950s, they developed the procedure to extract adrenochrome from children, okay, by torturing them and withdrawing it from the pineal gland in order to create this elixir of life. And they've been putting it out in front of our faces forever and a day. And people don't realize that, a lot of the television shows, movies, and things of that nature that we see on an ongoing basis actually tell us the truth if we just pay attention to it. Okay. How we extract adrenochrome in children's movie, or what is considered to be a children's movie, all right, is a movie from Disney Pixar called Monsters, Inc. You've probably seen it. Okay. Think about it for a second. All right. What are they doing? They're scaring children in order to extract scream from the children in order to power their power grid. That's what the monsters are doing. That's what the entire premise of the movie. It's all about how they extract adrenochrome. All right. But it's a children's movie. It's right in front of your face. Another movie out there, okay, which is called Death Becomes Her, with Bruce Willis, all right, and Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn. All right. It's about the use of adrenochrome and how it's promoted. All right. And spirit cooking and things of that nature. You've seen the whole thing with Abramovich and being close to the Clintons, and all the atrocities that go on with the Clinton Foundation. with, you know, children disappearing in Haiti after they got involved down there. And, you know, the child trafficking we've got here in the United States, they've said over and over again, well, you know, all these unaccompanied minors that came across from the United States that were from Mexico and from other countries, unaccompanied minors, 85,000 of them, all right, have gone missing. Don't know where they went to, have no clue where they went to. And this is a huge thing. You see it, you know, in the reports that people post online about, you know, officials busting sex trafficking rings, child trafficking rings, in things of that nature. All right. And people don't want to wake up to it. They're just like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to know anything about that. I've been in the middle of it. All right. I have seen the underbelly of society. Okay. In my work.
Billy and Alex, do you think that a lot of people who join these Masonic lodges, do you think they're all, you know, aware of it, or it's like a build up?
I think you cannot just join. There are two different ways, right? So one, they are the ones who approach you actually as well. So as Billy probably knows. So it's not like that you can just sign up to join. You can, if you want, just to do the charity part, you know, so that's fine. But if you are aiming for a deeper involvement with the Freemasons, so they are the ones who actually approach you.
We heard something, I think, beginning of the year. Is that higher than a 33-degree Mason?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where you begin the Scottish Rites. You have to look up Albert Pike, all right, from back in the 1800s, all right, who developed the Scottish Rites. All right. It was established long before that, but he actually put the criteria together for the Scottish Rites.
And going to Alex, you speak about the magic. So obviously they're looking for that professor was probably again grooming you to see how much that you've researched, giving a lecture to his students. See probably where you were in your research and your comprehension of the magic side.
Yeah, and how much you know, and how much you know.
Would that be correct?
Yes, that was very correct. That's correct. So in that respect, they also invited me to have a look at their antiquariates, for example. So they usually have really quite unusual books, very rare books, very old books, which we don't get to see usually. So I visited quite a few of those antiquariates and got an insight in their library.
Sorry, what do you call that? What was that? You visited the
antiquariates. So like
what?
It's like a bookshop, but antique bookshops.
Oh, right, okay.
Record of very rare, unusual books, like so which we don't the books which haven't been changed, if you like. So from new publications where they often these books into something which then will be released to the ordinary public. So, but they're like the Vatican holds a lot of these materials, which have probably one of the most extensive libraries of original books. Again, so which is not to see for the ordinary people.
Right. In my travels and whatnot, I, had a lot of conversations with biker gangs, like the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, the Banditos, and things of that nature. And I found a lot of correlation in between how they initiate their members and the way that the Masons actually initiate their members. Okay. Whenever you join a biker gang, you are considered a prospect. Okay. And they put you through a lot of different trials in order to prove your worth to the gang. All right. They do the same thing in the Masonry. All right. Through your first 10 levels, you are tried, okay, to see how good you are, all right, and how ruthless you can actually become. Okay. And they start indoctrinating you, and they hook you with the charity portion of it. And then they want to find out, how far are you willing to go? What are you willing to do next in order to promote the Masonry and promote yourself, okay, in order to gain the next level? Same principle, okay? There is a lot of correlation in between the two. All right. And they want to know how ruthless you can become. And that gets you promoted, okay, by doing certain little things that they try you with. For example, my grandfather was also president of the Barbers Union here in St. Louis. He did become a Grand Master Mason of the lodge that he was at in North St. Louis. All right. But he was president of the Barbers Union here in St. Louis for a long time as well. All right.
Barbers.
Barber, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Barbara Union.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there was this one family that had several barbers that were outside of the union, and they didn't like it. All right. So what did they do? They firebombed their shops. My grandfather was involved in it. All right. Well, what they didn't realize was that they one family was actually having a house remodeled, and they decided to stay in the apartment above the shop.
Oh, God.
All right. They firebombed the shop, and the entire family was killed, including 4 children. How ruthless are you willing to be?
Yeah.
Okay. How ruthless can you become?
And like Alex said, there's no empathy with these people, obviously, from, you know, your experiences, yours, Billy, and yours, Alex.
Yeah. Yeah. My father always said, there's nothing you can't imagine which they wouldn't do. So and there's a lot of truth to that. So that involves really everything and anything, like the whole child trafficking, all the corruption which is going on. I mean, it's just endless. They even kill each other. So as I just mentioned, you know, so one of the famous members was a banker. His name was Giovanni. And when he started to, because it goes all up into the Vatican as well. So when he started to question, because he was involved in a financial situation with the Vatican. So when he got into trouble and needed to explain where the money was going, so the Vatican decided just to get rid of him because he was getting too uncomfortable. So he was hung under the bridge in London.
Wow.
So that's a while ago, but it's quite a famous case. So when my father handed me quite a bit of the material, because my father actually did do one thing which I can say was probably a very positive thing. In the end, I don't know if you can say that he changed sides, but he wanted to prevent that this line is going on forever. So he actually handed over some of the material, which was quite inflammatory, which consisted out of list of members and some of the artifacts which he didn't want to hand over as well. So hence I had to be extra careful because of these kind of materials which I received. I don't have it anymore. So for anybody out there who's thinking I don't, it's all in a very, very safe space. And the lists, to be honest, I never did anything with it because I always thought, well, there's no point outing these kind of people because they will have their own destiny anyway. So I greatly so but it was quite interesting that before he died, he also had to disappear a few times because of his change of heart, if you like. So which was the only point where I thought there's still some decency left in him. So I don't know much. I didn't had much contact to him over the years because he was traveling a lot. It was not like that I was bitter or hold anything against him. It was just his path, which just was not my path. But I felt that if I can stop this institution from operating in some form or shape, then I will do anything and everything to try and do that. So, and I have, I can say that all what happened over the last 2 years, especially also with the whole situation we have experienced with certain viruses and situations which have been so they have this enormous master plan in place, which you probably, Billy, know all about it. Plan has been out there for a very, very long time. My father has told me these plans probably about 40 years ago, and every single situation which he talked about has occurred. So, which is quite incredible how they can manufacture all these kind of scenarios. And unfortunately, people will be blinded because the media is a big, huge part of it. And of course, they're also directed by them as well. So, but it is shocking how successful they have been so far.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the operation called Operation Mockingbird, okay, which is all about the media. All right, that was a psyop created by the CIA here in the United States. All right, and what they do is if you tell a lie or a story the same way over and over again long enough, and you have the public repeating it back to you verbatim, you have captured their minds. Okay. And you can see this in media reports all over the country where they're saying the exact same thing in the exact same way, maybe a few words twisted here and there, but the news media is promoting a narrative all the time. They keep repeating the same lies over and over again. Okay. In the same way. And it's to scare the public into believing a certain way. Fear is a very motivating factor. And you'd be surprised at how many people just fall for it. They just believe whatever the media tells them or whatever the government tells them. The government is feeding the media exactly what they need to have heard all the time.
You've got to give it, they've done a really good job of indoctrinating all of us before this great awakening. And for you, Billy, and you, Alex, to come on today and tell your incredible story, it's really, really brave. And just for the record, I'm not suicidal.
No,
neither am I. Neither am I. Okay.
I'm a very happy person.
Yeah, just in case.
But going just back to Alex, because Alex has invented a fantastic product. Obviously that's a good thing that you've probably got from the bloodline, Alex, that you can create this alternative medicine because it's so needed in today's mess and awakening to all these tablets and pills and jabs and everything else. So I think if we can just I think we could probably take this again in a part 2, I think, and extend this discussion I think it's incredible. I mean, you've had me quiet listening today. I'm just like blown away. I can't say I can't believe it, because look what we've all had to wake up to since 2020, and I feel so sorry for the people that've known it for centuries. It must be such a cross to bear. But just going back, and I applaud you both, and you know, bless you and bless your families, what's left, and we send you all the love and everything else. But going back to Alex, with a partner.
Just before you go on to Alex's product, which is amazing, by the way, because I've been using it myself. I think it's important, something like this, to get out to. There must be many, many, many people out there that have got caught up in this, in the lower levels with the charities, not realizing, and they don't know how the hell to get out of it. Well,
Exactly.
recently we came across a book that Indigo actually had, and I wish they left it here with us. But it was it's written. There's a few books, and they're written by a chap called Selwyn Stevens, and I believe he's New Zealand, from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Now he's got some videos on YouTube which go in depth as well. But there was something in the book that caught our eye, and it's called the Spiritual Bolt Cutter Prayer. And it's to release them. It's to release them from those oaths from
the Masonic order.
The Masonic order, basically. And it's fantastic. Now, I think there are also probably a lot of us that have perhaps got ancestors maybe that have been involved with this, although I am thinking a bit different now when you say they're going after, like they went after you, Billy, they went after you, Alex, so there's, you know, maybe something there. But anyway, we kind of we done this prayer ourselves with there was a few of us here, because this is the people who also have had family members in the order, and release them and their ancestors and any future. So I think, just to put it out there, that there is hope. This gives people hope. And I mean, you guys are living proof.
Yeah.
You guys are living proof, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
think big aspect is fear. They're using fear a lot. It's a frequency which feeds them. They live on it.
yeah,
So I think soon as we stop being fearful, that's when we're halfway there anyway, or almost the whole way.
And they starve.
Yeah, so we starve them of what they need.
exactly. And it is, like you said, it's being brave and standing up and saying enough is enough.
I think this is where a lot of us
can't.
are at the moment, and we're just waiting for the rest of the people to wake up, which I do believe they will. But this has been incredible today.
I wanted you to carry on, Alex, with you were talking about the magic aspect. And while you was actually doing that, I had to look at this antiquarian, okay? Because I didn't quite catch the antiquarian, like aquarium. And I noticed that it says the oldest Renaissance vault in Europe from 1568. And there's an antiquarium in Pompeii, in Italy, and it was referring to a Giuseppe Fiorelli, 1873 to 1874. So, wow, I wish I'd have known about them when I was doing my traveling to go, and I don't know if I'd be let in, but anyway, yeah. But that was a new word to me. Yeah, that's why I couldn't grasp that. But yeah, so that was really interesting. But you were going on about the Professor Hamburger and Professor Hamburger. Was that real?
Not Hamburger, but it's he was written a lot of books himself, so, and I don't think he was one of the worst guys ever, from the background of his of all the magicians which are out there. So he was, I saw him in the end. I never was really scared of any of them, to be honest. So
Good.
when I met them, I took as much knowledge out of them as possible, because one thing which I really like off. So they're all big egos, so, and they like to show off their kind of knowledge, and they have all sorts of little artifacts here and there which they collected over the years. I've met pupils of Aleister Crowley. I have been researching all sorts of people, so, and many of them were quite open to talk to me. So many of them died, so over the last few years. So but see, the old magicians, in a way, they, even so, they were really a big part of this whole mechanism, this whole network. I found that the new ones, which are the younger generations, are actually the ones you really have to watch, because they don't have any kind of honor. They don't respect anything. So they are very, very greedy, and they want to have more and more power. And they don't have any gifts left. So that's the other side. So most of the magicians which I met had, for example, they were quite gifted in telekinesis and these kind of things. So which I witnessed with quite a number of them. So they were very well trained, So and their knowledge was substantial. But with the new generations, I think they're a little bit lazy. So they're using different technology, like 5G, for example, right? So that's a kind of weapon which they use against people. While it was in the olden days, it would be something different.
Yeah.
Well, also, it's much more than 5G. It's actually the media, the
Yeah.
multimedia stuff, and the social media that
Mm.
you get hooked into, the gaming, and everything that associated with it. I remember an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where the entire crew got hooked on this game that and it fed them endorphins every time they leveled up, and it made you feel really good, and it took over the entire crew. Okay, in order for aliens to take over the Enterprise. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, they're creating these games and these social media apps in order to feed your endorphins that you're trying to get stimuli, you're trying to feel good about yourself, and we're not getting that in the real world. Okay, so we have to go to this artificial intelligence matrix in order to get what we need, in order to feel good about ourselves. All right.
Mm.
That's why the gaming industry is off the charts. It started back in the early 80s with putting quarters into machines so that you can feel good about yourself. You remember all the arcade games that you would do in order to feel good about yourself because you leveled up and you were feeding the beast. You were feeding the beast quarters every time. Same thing here today. They come out, with different things that, promote violence, that promote, thuggery and whatnot. One of the most famous games out there is Grand Theft Auto. All right. Think about the name of the game for Christ's sake. It's teaching you how to steal cars. It's teaching you how to be a thug. It's teaching you how to be a criminal. Okay. And you get rewarded for that by gaining experience points and leveling up and, playing against other people online. Kids today do not have a sense of self-worth or morality because they are not allowed to experience death. They are not allowed to experience it. Okay. Mom and dad see Goldie the goldfish, pass away. And before the kid gets home from school, all right, they've run out to the pet store to buy another goldfish. All right. All right. Instead of actually dying in a video game where you can't play it anymore, you spawn. It recreates yourself. All right. So they have no morality when it comes to death. I learned death at an early age, okay, because I was introduced to hunting. All right. And my grandfather, great grandfather, actually, a man named Stanley Bergier, who was a step grandfather, all right, taught me how to hunt. And he, with a 410 shotgun, I shot a rabbit. And he said, now you got to clean it because we're going to have it for dinner. I was mortified. Not only did I kill the rabbit, but I had to skin it, all right, and then eat it. Do you know what that does to a 10-year-old child? It makes you think. It makes you realize that whenever something dies, game over. And children are not taught that these days. Not at all. Which leads to you know, them thinking, hey, I'm going to live forever because I don't know how to die. I don't know what death is. Okay. So I can do anything I want to and not get punished for it. And they don't get punishment for a lot of things. Okay. They get a timeout. They don't know what corporal punishment is. They don't know what, you know, getting a whack with a board is. You know, that's been taken out. All right. You don't know what, you know, what a razor strap feels like across your thighs, the back of your thighs. I do. Okay. Because
that is a bit extreme, Billy, for God's sake. I wouldn't like to see that kind of stuff going on today. That, you know, some of the corporal punishment that happened years ago. I mean, it was pretty horrendous, you know.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
I know what you're saying, and I agree with you, you know. Because there is no discipline today, but I mean, oh my God, a razor strap, Jesus, that sounds horrendous.
That must have been horrendous for you.
That's terrible.
Well, it was only once or twice, but it, you know, one time, okay, not beaten severely or anything like that, but, you know, bend over, grab your ankles, raise the strap across the back of the thighs. One hit. Okay. It wasn't that hard. All right. And it left a mark, but it didn't make me bleed. Okay. But it was a corrective measure that my mother thought I needed to have at the time. You know, there is temperance in your punishment. Okay. It's not something that needs to be ongoing. You don't beat a child every day. Of course not. Okay. But sometimes the child needs to be corrected in a certain way so that they comprehend the punishment for their actions. Okay.
Like I said, I understand what you're saying, and I think we're all different. My punishment when I was a kid, I got grounded. And
Yeah,
that done it because I hate staying in. And
I'm not really one for violence, to be honest, against children.
I don't believe in teaching children to be violent.
I don't believe that punishment needs to be physical. You know, from my perspective.
Right. I get it. Yeah.
Respect other that can't be enforced. It needs to be learned. But I've been brought up in a Catholic school, and I have seen a lot of evil violence coming from those people. So that left a mark on me because, you know, I was lucky to have an escape just because my dad basically threatened them that if they would touch me, he would step in. But I've seen a lot of things in that school which was absolutely haunted me for years. And I think that there are some really sick individuals in this world who should not think that it's okay to do that to children.
Oh, I believe, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I've heard of the atrocities in the Catholic schools. I had friends that went to the Catholic schools, you know, and they were like, you know, the nuns were absolutely horrific, and the priests were even worse.
Yeah, because we've heard the same stories from our mother's family
Our own
background.
family, yeah.
So, you know,
Horrendous.
absolutely, it is horrendous.
Break the children, to break them into submission, you know, so which again is part of their
That's part of the whole agenda.
their whole agenda, to break people and to make them obedient, you know. So, and it kind of continues basically until their adulthood and further on. So, and that's just exactly what I don't want to see in the future, you know. So there's no need for this to accept
Well,
that
yeah.
any longer.
Of course. I sent you all something in the chat. Okay. If
Yeah,
you can access it. All right.
Yeah.
It is the actual Freemasonry bolt cutter prayers for the different levels
Ah, right.
of
I've
Freemasonry.
downloaded that.
Okay.
Okay.
So it goes through, and if you allow me to share my screen, I'll show it to you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You have to give me permission.
Do I? Hang on. Yeah.
All right. It's under security, allow to share screen.
I've got it. You should have it now.
Okay. All right. Do you see that?
Right. Okay.
Okay. This is the prayer of release for Freemasons and their descendants. Okay. And it basically goes through the thing. But then there's the 33rd and supreme degree prayer, the Blue Lodge prayer.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it goes through the York Rite prayer, the Holy Royal Ark degree, right? The chapter of Rose Croix, the 18th degree, the Council of Kadosh, Sublime Princes of the Royal Secret, the Shriners, after you've gone through the Scottish rites, and all other degrees. So there's a lot to share there.
Okay.
Okay. It's not just one prayer. All right.
Yeah.
It is, you know, I did a little research, you know, whenever you showed me that first prayer, and I found the rest of these.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
Okay. So you can download that from the chat. Okay.
Yeah.
For your reference.
Alex, where did you get reviews? Because you've had so much involvement, and you know so much about what's it. Oh, I'll tell you what, I was thinking when you said about creating a child, I was like, what? You know, how does that work? So would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, there's certain rituals which they perform just to invite a certain form of energy, which then very often is, for example, I don't like to use the terminology a demon, but it is like an entity. So comes usually from the regions of some knowledge we say they use in praxis in their magic. So very often they are Saturni or Saturn entities, because they were favored because of the just purely of the strengths of those entities and the performance they would enhance with that. So
and do they go off dates things as well? Does it have to be a certain time or a moon phase?
it's quite a big undertaking. So it's not just like you go in some space and they draw a circle and then you just invite the spirit. So it's a long process where they prepare themselves, sometimes through fasting, and all sorts of different other rituals which come first. So it's like a process of going through numerous gateways. So it's not, there aren't any shortcuts. So you need to stick to a certain way of doing it. It's a bit like some of the books suggest that there are certain numbers of gateways to come to the knowledge which you desire. So it's the same by creating these kind of entities. So you can't just cut it short and skip all the first few levels of that praxis. So you need to go through every single one. So that's what they used to do, or what they're doing basically is stick to these kind of magical pathways, if you like, and so to desired outcome. And you can do mistakes.
So would the sorry, gone.
Yes. Now you can do a lot of mistakes in that matter as well. So many magicians failed in these kind of ways where they got some form of entity through which was not not a servant of theirs, but in the end they were a servant of that entity. And at the same count, Mr. Crowley, because he did similar mistakes, for example.
So would the woman be pregnant first, and then they would do these rituals after to change something? Or, I mean,
Was performed as a magic, like a sexual ritual. So it basically the conception of a child would be within this ritual.
right. Okay.
So they invite an entity who would then impregnate.
Oh my God. Sorry,
the
you
woman.
just froze then, sweetheart. You just froze then. So yeah, they invite an entity.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, you just froze.
Which
So
would, yeah.
right. Okay.
So sounds a little bit like woo-woo and it's very strange. But we're talking here different realities which they had access to or have access to. So it's not just one reality for all, you know, so it's interdimensional gateways which they're using just as much as any other person who is working on such level.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we understand that.
Sorry, you're breaking up now. Can't hear you.
Yeah, we understand that sort of level thing with entities and different things we've had experiences through our lives, not with sex magic or.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you not hear us? Hello?
I think you just there.
You hear us now? Hello?
Yeah, I think he's been
Are you
freezing up.
still there? I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Okay. I don't know what's happened then.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Uh-oh, we lost Alex.
Oh, we've lost him. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to stop the recording here.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe we're getting.
Oh, wait, there he is.
Ah,
Oh, that was
Yeah.
weird.
yeah. Well, not
Too
really.
far, Alex.
I think I said too much here.
You've said too much.
We're being shut down by the cabal, you know.
Yeah.
It's been it's been incredible today just to, to hear this and you sharing this, not just with us, but for people out there. I just think you're really both really incredibly brave.
You are,
to be honest.
you are, and we admire you so much.
We do.
We really do.
Well, thank you.
Well,
And
thank
Alex,
you.
thank you for the insight. You know, your
Yeah.
perspective on things is absolutely spot on.
Yeah. It's high time anyway, and these things have started coming out anyway the last 3 years, and it's just
It's time.
It's time.
Shut down.
I think we're being shut down again.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Can you still hear us, Alex?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I think he's lost audio again.
Yeah, I can just about.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
No,
we
we
probably need.
can't hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right then. So I think we're gonna have to have a part 2.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Okay.
to end it there, and we can get all the links if you're both willing to come back on another time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah.
I want to do a prayer before we go. I want to do a prayer for all of us. So I want you to just visualize that we're all linking hands, and you, Viv, that we're all linking hands. Yeah.
I will, as long as you don't call me Viv again.
Sorry, I know. Why am I calling you that? You must have been in a past life.
Oh,
Anyway,
Anyway, I'm going to do this prayer. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on men. So be it.
so be it.
So be it.
So
And
be-
all Yahshua. Amen.
Right, beautiful.
That was a shortened version. I'll do the long version next time, but
Well,
I just felt we needed.
The light rounders, and we
We
have.
need the
We're
We've got it.
we're quite powerful beings when it really comes down to
Yeah.
it. But if we can end it there, but if you stay on,
Yeah, and then we'll just
we'll
have
just have a little
chat,
All right. So stopping recording now.
Alex, you've invented a fantastic product. You was talking to me the other day that you bought two new lines out. I'll just give them, the people at home just a little
taster.
Yes.
Alex's Aqua. Now, myself and Angie's been using it. I've been drinking it. I typically like the eye drops, especially because we're in front of all these cameras all the time, and you do tend to get what the doctors say a dry eye, but obviously it's the radiations and the EMFs and the EMPs and whatever coming off the screens. So I found the Aquan eye drops absolutely really soothing to the eye. And if you just want to explain a bit, Alex, because then we could, put like maybe send Billy a link and do a link and put yours. But I definitely think that we need to do a part 2, guys. Are you up for it?
Yeah.
Okay. But Alex, if you could just explain about the Aquan.
Yeah, I can. Aquan is not just any supplement, so it's created from fractal water, which means that it's been led through a magnetic field and through a vortex, which then restructures the water in its original form, so that it has all its purity as it's supposed to have. Which also means that it can be programmed, because as we know, water has an incredible memory, so that you can program it with, for example, what we are using is frankincense, myrrh, and gold. So these 3 have incredible benefits, not just for your physical body, but also for your non-physical body. So just very shortly, for example, the GABA receptors in our brain. So they are the ones which are being affected by the myrrh, which is in the products. So that allows you, for example, to relax and to use to lose your anxiety. It's almost like a switch where you lose all your fear. And so that was something which I found is quite incredible and quite important in terms of switching on really the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious mind again, and to build a bridge between the three of them, so that we actually can access our true DNA memory. So which enables us, for example, self-healing, or the ancestral kind of gifts which we carry within us, so that we can switch on our senses. So many people, for example, who take Akwan for the first time, dream quite intensely. So they have a completely different ability to enter their dream time. So from that point, also they feel not only the physical benefits in terms of pain relief or any kind of problems you have, it promotes homeostasis. So which means that within our body, when we have just anything which could be from past or present, some kind of defect, it will correct it. So that's just a really kind of brief description of what Akwan actually is. So the aim for that was not just to, we cannot say that it cures anything, we're not allowed to do that, but it certainly helps us to heal ourselves, and that's really what it does. It's quite incredible.
Well, I think that's very important at the moment. But what we'll do, Alex, anyway, is we'll put a reminder in the Magna Carta group. Obviously, maybe Billy can share it on his group as well. But it's just, it is. I like to say, I've been using the eye drops, and you've been using the water as well.
Yeah.
So
Just to add very quickly, sorry to interrupt before I forget. Now, in alchemy, this was known, and this is the first time actually I'm speaking about it publicly. This was known as the fifth element.
the fifth element.
Yeah.
The fifth element. Yes.
The element of ether.
That's right.
Yeah. I've looked into a little bit of alchemy, but yeah.
So I use basically the knowledge, which is also something which they try to withhold from us for a very, very long time, because they know if we can fuse the four elements and come to the fifth element, we are literally coming into our true selves. So where there's no disease, nothing which will stop us as human beings. So it will transform us into the incredible beings we're supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's what the aim is, to also together again and to build this unity, so we can literally stand up against those guys and say this is enough.
Well, we're certainly finding each other right now. All these people connecting is absolutely fabulous.
It is.
I mean, Billy's an incredible guy. We absolutely adore him. You know, the same as we met you as well. You lovely,
You and Bill, we love you both.
Beautiful people, absolutely beautiful people.